just a dirty truckie putting food on my table. Got a fat kid who is lazy and an asshole. Just a truckie boy, you made I put food on your woolly shelf. You may let's be safe and look after yourself. I appreciate a little.
Time for another Truckie Tuesday here on Bonafide. And Rod Hannifey once again is with us. He's in the yard at Dubbo. He's about to go to Perth. That's a big trip, Rod. What sort of preparation is underway?
Preparation's all done, thank goodness. Although I must admit, I left Melbourne on Thursday, planning to go to Wagga, and I'm into my second alphabet. Yes, no, go there, go here. Hang on, no, go here and there. No, hang on, go there and here. Hang on a minute, no, it again. So I said yesterday, if you change it again, look out. So now we're settled. Back yesterday, I've had my 24-hour break at home, sort of, and just got to fuel up and hook up, and then there's another driver. He's just getting his set ready as well.
Are you doing a double up?
No, he's got his own truck and his own trailer. He said he banged his knee, so he rang me up and he said, I hear you're going to Perth. I said, yeah, so do I. Well, I banged my knee and I'm a bit crook. He said, do I mind if I travel with you just in case? And I said, no, that's fine, mate.
So how many stops between Dubbo and Perth? How long is it going to take you? And we'll get into this a little bit later on. How much fuel?
Yes, that's the thing, see. So I carry about 1,500 litres. He's about the same. Get to Port Augusta in 14 hours. We'll probably end up stopping the first night somewhere short of Port Augusta. And then the second day, who knows, maybe the border. I've got to go to Kalgoorlie with one trailer. Got to drop the second trailer, unload the first, and then move the dolly to the back and put that trailer at the front. And then we get to Northam and fuel there. So let's hope they've got plenty. You've got to drop one trailer and then go in with each individually and all that sort of fun.
It sounds like a lot of fun. And we'll talk about the availability of diesel in Australia in just a little while, a little bit later on in this chat, because it's diesel that keeps the country running. I mean, if you need your car for work, we've learnt during COVID that people can work, or some members of the working community can work from home, but truckies can't. Our groceries don't get on the shelves of the supermarkets by Zoom. So we'll talk about the fuel crisis in just a little while. But first of all, time to catch up. We'll go into our inbox if we can, Rod. We've had a voicemail from a listener.
The NHBR always target us, but I was following a vehicle the other day after the body truck incident. He obviously didn't really care that he had 4-ball drive tyres. But I was following a car down the motorway, heading out to go and do some deliveries for the next day, and the wheel was wobbling that bad. You know, I was worried about snapping the wheel studs and flying off. Like, when does the NHVR start looking at cars and some of the conditions they're in? I mean, sometimes you're driving down the highway at night time, there's no tail lights on an old ute, or, you know, they've got one headlight, or I've even seen a car that's had a full head-on collision and then drove off and kept driving like there was nothing wrong with it. You know, we seem to be the target and make the headlines, and, you know, as soon as something goes wrong, they fire the bullet straight at us, but they never have a look at any of these sort of cars that are out there on the road.
I had a brief comment about this, but I wanted to save it for you because he is a truckie. He said, what can the NHVR do? Well, the NHVR is the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator, and it looks after heavy vehicles. The condition of a motor car is up to the responsibility lies on the mechanic that passes it for rego, but also that's what the police are for. The NHVR doesn't have anything to do with motor cars, does it, Rod?
No, it doesn't, mate, no. And it's up to the police to do something about that. Like years ago, you would hear people getting pulled up for only having a headlight or something like that. You don't hear it now, but geez, you see it a lot. And, of course, you know, when you've got something coming towards you and you see one light, you think, oh, well, is it a motorbike or is it a car? And most cars don't seem to have park lights now. Like, at least in the past where you had a headlight go out, you still had your park light on that side, so you knew what was coming towards you. And that seems to have changed. So it can be quite interesting. And the one I have even more trouble with is people that tow trailers that don't have lights on them and don't have clearance lights out the side, and the car goes past and then the trailer appears out of the dark and scares the living daylights out out of you. So I understand his concern that we get targeted. And I think that's a problem, and I'm sure you've seen on the TV there's being a big fatigue blitz, Luke. Now, I see Paul Salvati was on the TV at one stage, and he said, look, we found 5,000 fatigue offences last year, so we're going to go and have a blitz. Now, I have two problems with that, Luke. The first one is, if they found 5,000 offences, I want to know how many of them were serious breaches and how many of them were 10 minutes over, didn't tick a box, forgot to write the date down, didn't add the hours up, all those little things that we argue that have nothing really to do with fatigue or road safety. And if they turn around and say, well, there was 2,000 serious ones, okay, so what's the problem? Let's address it as an industry. Be fair, be genuine, and tell us the truth. But if they turn around and say there's 5,000 offences and we find out that 4,200 are minor piss-ass things that have nothing to do with road safety, then how do you justify all that time and money to go out and target blokes again and pull them up and knock them off for more minor bullshit things? So I have a problem with that.
Yeah, but as I said, a mechanic that passes a car fit for rego, they could lose their licence if they pass a car that isn't fit for the road. But also it is the job of the police to put defects on cars, and you've got to stop driving it until the driver or the owner of the vehicle addresses those problems. So it's not the job of the NHVR, but I hear his point. No. Rod, we've got an email from Matt. Let me read it to you. It goes, listening to your latest Bonafide podcast, I really enjoy listening to you ever since you're on Triple M. Oh, that's nice. I just wanted to let you know that since the 1st of January this year, Western Australia has been repairing a lot of roads and highways where a lot of trucks drive, and the roads are phenomenally way better than I've ever seen them before. Looking for Rod's response.
Oh, we'll find out, I suppose. It's good to see. Again, they've been doing a lot of resurfacing. So Australia is one of the few countries in the world that uses the asphalt overlay. Virtually, you get the dirt nice and smooth. You put down a layer of virtually thin bitumen, liquid bitumen. Then you put stone on top, and they keep putting the stone on top. So we supposedly do that better than anywhere else in the world. But at the moment, they're out just overlaying with bitumen and stone, and they're going straight over the top of the failures, which will, of course, come through again. So, mate, we'll check the roads out, and I will let you know.
Yeah, and something I wanted to cover a little bit later in Truckie News, but we'll do it now because it's relevant. The state government has announced that the Great Western Highway is going to be closed for 3 months because of desperate repairs near Mount Victoria, and all traffic's to get from Penrith or Richmond through to Lithgow. You're going to take the Bells line of road, which doesn't give you a lot of overtaking opportunities. However, the parts of the road that they're talking about, a lot of the support work was made hundreds of years ago by convicts. 3 months. The Great Western Highway closed for 3 months. That's going to cause an enormous disruption, isn't it, Rod?
Mate, it certainly is. My understanding is, looking back into the history of that, there was a road below it called Berghoffers Pass that was used before the Victoria Pass was done. It's only a walking track now. Whether it could ever be reinstituted, who would know? I've got a mate that's gone right into the history of it, and he said there's actually a flat valley that comes out from Windsor, where at the end of that valley you only need a 5-kilometre tunnel to come out the other end, and we wouldn't be going up and down all these hills in the first place. But that was the thing from 30 or 40 years ago. They were aware of movement in that, and it's not a bridge, it's actually a rock wall. They were aware of movement in it in 1990. They said we're going to monitor it. They were aware of movement and further failures, where at one stage they looked into it and they said, all the dirt's gone from between the rocks. We're just going to watch that and see what happens. Well, we know what happened. Now they've closed the road, and as you say, we've got the double whammy of fuel prices, and let's not talk about fuel gouging and thieving fuel companies and people putting up prices of fuel that they'd already bought and paid for. Let's not go there. But you've got the double whammy of extra fuel prices plus a detour. Now, the Victoria Pass has always been a bottleneck for freight, Luke. You're only allowed over there in, technically, a semi which is 19 metres long. Now, there are a few exceptions. There are what's called baby B doubles running at 20 metres under PBS. That's the biggest combination allowed over there. So we've never been allowed B doubles through there, and the idea of the tunnel that they were going to build was going to go straight from semis to A doubles, like a road train by any other name, as we've discussed in the past. That got canned, of course. They reckon they didn't have the money for that. And now that road's closed. So it's double the volume on Bells Road, and I saw some bloke sitting there yesterday not moving because of the congestion. It's not the best road. There's a very, very long, steep descent on it that, you've got to be really careful of. Some of the corners are narrow, and I see there's already been some complaint about trucks, having wheels over the centre line. Well, they have to do that so they don't run over the Armco on the other side. Yeah. And people just have to have a little bit of patience. But why is it that knowing the problem was there, that nothing's been done, everybody's fobbed it off and let it go, and now we're in a situation where they say 3 months, Luke, but it could be longer, and virtually all the people in Western New South Wales are being punished and penalised, and that's wrong.
Well, I'll tell you something. Last weekend, the Penrith Panthers had a game of NRL against the Cronulla Sharks at Carrington Park in Bathurst. Now, I can tell you that Carrington Park has a capacity of 11,500 people, and it was packed. The Panthers are almost a local team that they draw from the Bathurst Penguins. Can you imagine what the Bells line of road was like as the only way to get to Lithgow and then on to Bathurst over the weekend?
Yep. Yes, and look, I did talk to a gentleman from an ABC program, and I said, you do realise, of course, that it's not just servicing Bathurst and Orange and Dubbo. I said all the freight that comes out of Sydney to Mount Isa and Darwin comes out that road as semi-trailers. They come to Dubbo, they hook up another one as a road train, they go to Burke, they hook up a triple. So all of that stuff is now joining that mix, is being delayed further, is costing more because of the price of fuel, and it's because people looked at it and said, we'll let that develop. So it's developed now so that we don't have a road, and that's a real problem.
You know that little... Well, it's a kind of everything business at Little Hartley. As you're heading west, it's on the left. It sells sweets, it sells hot chili, it's novelty goods. They've got no customers, and that's just one example. It's 3 months, and the Minister for Transport said, 3 months, yes, if everything goes according to plan. When did the last government project go according to plan?
Yes, that's what I say. 3 months if we're lucky, mate. It could be longer. And again, are they going to fix it properly? How are they going to do it? I don't know. Maybe we should ring the Chinese. They'd come over and build a new tunnel there in about 6 weeks, wouldn't they?
Oh, jeez. Yeah. All right. Yes, right. Some fun and games for people wanting to use the Great Western Highway over the next 3 months. I'm tipping it'll be more like 6, and that is catastrophic, absolutely catastrophic. And Kelsey, you drove the Kona to Bathurst, and we went via the Bells line of road. There aren't many overtaking opportunities, but imagine the Great Western Highway shut for 3 months. Unbelievable. And how did they let it get to this? How did they let it get to this? As I said, Blaxland, Wentworth and Lawson took less time.
So, Luke, I do have a good and a bad caravan story for you.
Oh, okay. We're all listening.
Okay, so on the way to Adelaide last week,
yes,
went from Melbourne to Adelaide, driving along, and here's this caravan sort of slowing down, coming towards me. He's half off the road, so he hasn't got off the road. He's sort of sitting half on the road and half off the road, slowing down. There's a truck right up his clacker behind him.
Yeah.
And I called the truck up and I said, geez, you'd think he could have found a better spot to pull over and mess about. And he said, no. He said, it's worse than that. He said, I watched him. He sat at the exit to the parking bay till until he got there and then pulled straight out in front of me. And I locked everything up so I didn't run into him because I'm coming the other way. And then he said, as soon as he's got out and the highway started to accelerate, he's looked out the mirror, obviously, and the driver can see it as well. The door of the caravan's flapping in the breeze. So that's why he's halfway off the road trying to find somewhere to stop and shut the door. So not only was he an idiot for pulling out in front of the driver, but then he's messed him round again. Going across, I think, coming into Tintinara, wherever it was, there was another caravan there, had a wheel virtually come off. And again, honestly, the length of the caravan in front of him was a wide shoulder where he could have been safely off the road. But he stopped half on the road with a police car there and all the traffic's got to go around him. Why he couldn't have pulled up, 10 feet further, I don't know. But then on the good side, Luke, I'm on my way home from back to Melbourne, and I come up on this Caravan. There's a car between the Caravan and I, and the Caravan's got a tiny little sign about 3 or 4 inches high that says 18/40. So I called up, I said, copy there, the Caravan eastbound in front. Oh, yeah, mate, yep. I said, may I make a suggestion? He said, what's that? I said, mate, I can see your 1840 sign there. I said, I'm in the truck behind you, so you can see how far back I am. And I said, no one could read it from here, but I said, I know what Channel 18's about because I started it many years ago. And the lady on the radio said, oh, would that be Rod Hannifey? Of course, after I stopped laughing, I said, how would you know that? Oh, we listen to the podcast all the time.
Hey.
Yeah, so I thought, well, there you go. So to Joanne and Louie, safe travels in the Caravan. Thanks for doing the right thing and having a sign, but for goodness sake, get a bigger one.
Oh, we love them. They're so good.
Was that your good story or your bad story? You had two.
No, that was the good one. Yeah, it certainly took me by surprise. So.
What's the bad story?
Anyway. Oh, the bad one was the first one.
He already said it.
Okay,
In
sorry.
front of the truck, and yes.
I thought that was combined.
Caravanners that are listening to this, send us in your questions about travelling on the road with trucks, good or bad. We want to hear from you specifically, caravanners.
How can we all get along better? What's your suggestion?
Well, I actually feel like, Rod, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I actually feel like caravanners in general are like, most of them I feel like want to do the right thing if they're educated. Like,
if they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I've heard some stories from Nathan's parents, about their caravanning adventures, and it seems like at least the group that they're in, like they all kind of want to be more educated because they respect trucks. But I know that not all caravanners are like that.
No, and to get to them is really hard. Like there is the CMCA, the Camper Van and Motorhome Club of Australia. They're the biggest group, but they represent more motorhomes than caravans. There's the Australian Caravan Club, and I've been to events with both of those groups and done seminars and things like that. But again, for me to go to all of those things, I'd have to give up my job, and of course that makes it pretty hard to feed the family and pay the bills. I get a lot of invites, but they're a very disparate group, a bit like truckies. They're all individuals. They're all alone. How do you get to them if they're not in a club? If they're in a club, they might have a newsletter, they do a seminar, they go to something, I've got a chance to talk to them. But other than that, trying to get hold of them individually. And look, I've actually rang the biggest caravan manufacturer in Australia and said, I have this thing called the Caravan Survey. Maybe when you sell a caravan, you could give it out with a new caravan and they'll think you're really good people and you'll help them understand and be safer on the road. No, it's too hard, we can't be bothered. So that's really sad. I've certainly tried. And honestly, I think when I started many, many years ago, having Caravan Channel 18, that sort of thing has helped. Going to those seminars and, I could probably say off the top of my head I've been to 15 or 20 over the last few years with different clubs and groups, and I've always got a good reception there, Luke.
Good.
Many years ago, the first time I went to the Stone the Crows Festival, which unfortunately doesn't happen anymore, we had 300 people. Walked in and spent an hour and a half listening to me talk about sharing the road with trucks and asking questions and answering questions. And I still get feedback from them occasionally. I remember seeing you there and it was really helpful. And as you say, the majority want to do the right thing, but unless somebody calls them up and says, copy there in the caravan, man, are you aware that what you just did was the wrong thing? For example, moving over to the shoulder and slowing to 80 kilometres an hour when there's 5 trucks coming the other way, thinking the truck behind you can do a Harry Potter and just narrow up to a metre wide and scoot past at, warp speed. So, some of the time they think they're helping and they're actually making it worse. And that's the stuff that we have to target, both for their safety and ours.
Maybe we can do a special caravanning edition.
Well, let's get someone from the CMCA on
Tuesday. Yeah, we've said that for a while. They're hard to get in contact with.
Let's do it. And also, caravanners, have the radio on the right channel.
Well, and if you're going to have a sign on the back, for goodness sake, have the thing turned on, because, yes, we've discussed major capital cities, a lot of truckies turn the thing off. But that's why Channel 18 was born, so that there was a channel for caravanners. They can chat if they're running together. And I've got to say, Luke, the one other thing that they do wrong generally is run too close together. Now, not their fault, but coming out of Dubbo, geez, on Thursday night, Friday night, I had a mole mate in his farm truck. Now, I'm sure that everybody's seen a farm truck dawdling down the highway at 85 kilometres an hour without a care in the world. He's thinking about his pigs and his sheep and whatever else he's going to do that night. And you drive past, and it's like they're in another world. You know, there's no one else on the road. They can just take their time. It's a lovely afternoon. The sun is shining. But old mate had someone with him, with another vehicle behind with a trailer, and they're stuck virtually one car length apart, so no one could pass just one of them. And, of course, in the overtaking lane, which was uphill, I struggled to catch up, and I give them a flash to say, hey, how about instead of you accelerating up to 95, let me get past? No, they said on that, so I had to overtake them after that and had to overtake them together. And, of course, I did meet that bloke that we all loved the other day too, coming up in an overtaking lane. Now, this is going to sound like I'm a real prick, Luke.
Oh, Rod, you could never be a prick.
That's right. So, again, car doing about 95. Now, I'm a third of the way from Melbourne to Adelaide. I've got a fair way to go. I've got to get in there, get to bed, and this car's doing about 95. So it makes it really difficult to overtake them in a truck which is speed limited to 100. I can put my foot through the floor, and unless I'm going downhill, it won't exceed 100. So we get to the overtaking lane, and I'm out beside the car, and they've sped up that little bit. So now they're doing about 97, and I'm gaining on them, and we're coming to the end of the overtaking lane. Now, before we got to the end, they never put their indicator on. They never moved over. They just sat there beside. So I'm actually the truck. I'm in a B double. I'm fully loaded. I'm 60 tonne, and I'm in front of the car before we get to the end of the overtaking lane.
Yeah.
And, of course, at the last minute, he suddenly goes, oh, goodness, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Now, of course, I'm not going to lock everything up because, by law, this was one of the overtaking lanes where the dotted line goes right to the end.
Yeah.
Therefore, he has to cross the dotted line to come into my lane. He has to give way to the right. He has to give way to an overtaking vehicle. And at the last second, he's just gone, oh, shit, and then had to sort of nearly stop. Now, he would have abused me and said what a prick I was, but all he had to do was lift his foot off when he came into the overtaking lane and let anybody else pass, because I had a queue of cars stuck behind me as well. But I'm not going to let them go and then not get the chance to pass the bloke for the next 27 kilometres. And again, all he had to do was lift the foot. He didn't have to slow down or anything really, just lift the foot a little bit. I'd have got safely past, but no, let's sit here right till the end and then abuse the truck driver because he cut me off. And I'm sure that's what the bloke would have thought. But, mate, how do we teach people?
I don't know.
Not to be an idiot. And that's the problem.
I don't know. And it doesn't just happen to trucks. It happens to us in cars too.
Oh, my God.
You're in 110 kilometres an hour. There's a car in front of you going 90.
Yeah.
You go to overtake and they speed up.
Yeah.
What annoys me...
And at the end, they slow down again.
What annoys me, this happened the other day. Nathan and I were in, really packed traffic in the city, and we need to get across a couple of lanes. And this is something that people often do in this specific area because you come out of a shopping centre onto a highway. So it's very common for people to move over a couple of lanes so they can turn right. And this one car would just not let us in. And it is so frustrating because I never not let people in, right? Especially in an area like that. I always let people go in front of me when they put their indicator on because I've been in the position before where I need to change lanes. And I just do not understand people that care about being one space ahead. It's like you're not even that further ahead. Just let people in when they need to be let in.
Oh, I know.
So the other thing is we need to teach people how to merge, and it should be like the zipper. It should be one from each lane.
Yep.
Yeah.
But there's always be, as you say, there's someone who, A, has got to try and push in where there isn't a gap when there's already been two cars got in. So that's, you wait your turn. And then there's someone that won't let you in. So get over it.
No, people are so rude.
What's wrong with people?
Just be nice. Just
I
be
know.
nice.
By the way, the largest, most popular caravan manufacturer in Australia is Jayco. Is that who you were referring to?
Yes.
They have 37% of the market.
Yes, I know. I have tried individual dealers. I have written to them. I have sent them the, caravan survey. Never got a response back, which is a bit disheartening, as you say. They've got a very big market position. You would have thought something as simple as a little bit of education would have made them look better. Made them seem to be genuinely concerned about the people they're selling vans to.
I guess when people just buying off you anyway, why would you care? People are going to buy off them anyway.
We've got market share. Yeah, bugger them. Yeah, they'll buy it anyway. So,
well, I think we need to get someone from the CMCA on, and we're trying.
Yeah.
We'll get them on as soon as we can with you. We might get Nathan's dad on too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure he's got lots to say.
Oh, when we were in Tasmania, and because Steve, they transported their caravan over with their car and all that type of stuff. So I got to check it out. And they've got a UHF. And I was in their car. We were traveling back from somewhere, about 45-minute drive through the Tasmanian countryside. And I was like, Steve, turn it on, turn it on, turn it on, turn it on. Like, I want to see how it works. And I fully understood what you meant by people just sitting on there, talking absolute shit. And it was funny.
Was
because
it Channel 18?
Oh, we did all of them.
Yeah, right.
At one point, we just set it on scan, and so whenever it picked up a signal, it would just tune in, and then when we got too far. But we were going through a roadworks, and it was really funny because it was like all trucks. They were doing like gravel laying down or whatever. And it was so funny being able to hear them talk to the lollipop men, like as cars were going through, because you could tell that they were like, guy in the white van, really slow, mate, just cut him off after that, just talking like shit about the cars going through. It was very funny.
It's good.
It is good.
It's entertaining. It's kind of like eavesdropping.
It is. It felt like we were eavesdropping, and I kind of loved it.
Yeah. Well, I reckon we should get one on our next road trip just to listen in.
Honestly, it is fun. It is fun.
Okay. We'll get a sponsor.
Yeah.
UHF. Who manufactures UHF radios? Yeah.
I don't know.
Let's get them on as a sponsor.
GME in Australia. GME have been a sponsor of mine for many years. They've supplied me with radios. They used to make sort of car radios as well. They don't do that anymore. But GME make them in Australia, and there is another manufacturer as well. But GME are good.
Okay, we're onto it.
GME. I heard you have fantastic radios. Yes, the best in the market.
And we can help you move more.
Yeah.
Anyone out there with a product, if you have it, we'll flog it. Hey, that's a slogan.
I know, you've said that for a while.
Rod, that chat we had with Travis Sinclair, how good was it?
Yes. And due to you, mate, I missed out on the film clip and, playing me harmonica and, the triangle, and I haven't heard from Travis. You obviously scared him off. But looking forward to his new single. I see there are a couple of other young country people. Somebody sent me a link during the other day, and I'll have to have a listen to that and come back and give you a thought, and then we'll have to get them to come on and tell us what they think about trucking in Australia.
Absolutely, but because of the Travis Sinclair clip.
Well, I put a clip up on Facebook. And there was a big response. Luke, what were some comments that caught your eye?
Okay, this is from Cole. This could almost be lyrics to a song.
I don't know about that.
Okay, well, let me show you. If I get a bit doughy, which means tired, I always aim for a 45-minute nap. 15 minutes to get some sleep, 15 minutes of actual sleep, 15 minutes awake before heading off again, and find I'm right to go again.
Oh, it's like Dr. Seuss.
But you were right. Now I'm 45 minutes behind and being regulated, legislated, restricted, and there's no catching that 45 minutes up again. It's gone, but I'm still here, so there's that. Keep it safe.
Like Dr. Seuss.
It is kind of Seuss-ish. Yeah. Rod?
Yeah, mate, when he said 45 minutes, I'm thinking, of course, the power nap thing is don't have more than 20 because then you get into REM sleep and that makes it worse when you wake up, but he's got the plan. Yep, so he's on the money there. And look, again, I'm just writing a draft requirement for Rod Pillen Transport for the new HVNL2. So under the current law, we have 3 levels. We have standard hours, which is 12 hours. We have basic fatigue, which is 14 hours. And we have AFM advanced fatigue, which is 15 or 16, depending on what state you're in. And then, of course, we have the WA regs, which are completely better again, as we've discussed in the past. So when the new law comes in, supposedly in July or something this year, we will only have 2 levels of fatigue. So we'll have standard hours. So instead of bringing the standard up to the 14, which is what everybody might have preferred, I would think, they've said, no, what you have now is BFM, where we have to do a course and be accredited, but so does my fleet controller. So the reasoning behind that is if the fleet controller says, Rod, go and do this. No, I can't do that. Why can't you do that? You should be able to. Well, they also have to do a course for BFM. But now all that's been thrown out, standard hours and anything above standard hours, we have to apply again to get accredited. The company has to apply to be accredited, and there's going to be a number of templates, which of course they can't tell us what they are yet, one of which will be sort of what we have with BFM. So why do we have to throw away something I've had for the last 20 years and go and be accredited to do exactly the same thing the next day? That's a load of crap, but that's my view. So we'll see where that ends up. But I'm writing a list that we would like a couple of minor changes, nothing serious, but just simply to make it easier for a driver, particularly, for example, here, to go to Perth and back. Last time I made it to Cobar. Now, Cobar's 3.5 hours from Dubbo. I ran out of hours at Cobar. I sat there for 24 hours. It's probably more fatiguing to sit there because, of course, you've pulled up, you've driven, then you're out of hours, so you go to sleep. Then you've got to get up, sit there, walk around all day, do shopping, look, and then try and go to bed so that you can go to work again to get home that night. And it's just a load of crap, and they don't recognise that that makes it worse. It increases your stress. It's another night, 3.5 hours. And I still had legal hours for the week and everything. But because of the logbook, I had to sit there for 24 hours. So that's just ridiculous, and we've got to get a little bit of flexibility. It's all we really want.
There's a comment on that we've received from Craig about the logbook. It's not a very long comment, but it's to the point. Craig says, call it the death book for a reason. Forces you to drive tired, more fairy tales in mind than the Bible.
Yes, and of course the authorities will say nobody forces you. Well, that's crap. We've got cameras that say you can't do this and you can't do that. We have a national camera network that watches everything you do. And in the past, let's be fair, Travis said the same thing, mate. He said, I will drive when I'm fit and I will sleep when I'm tired. And he, in the past, made his logbook match. And a lot of blokes did. Now, a lot of those blokes did millions of kilometres without an accident. It was probably 10 years ago, a bloke stopped me at a truck stop. He said, mate, I have never in 20 years on the highway struggled to be safe because now with all these cameras, I have to do what they tell me to do. I have to sleep when they say go to sleep. I have to drive when they say drive, whereas in the past, I drove when I was fit and I slept when I was tired. And we're different. The days are different. The loads are different. The temperature's different. The roads, all different. But no, you do it our way because we know better. And that's the problem.
Yeah. Jimmy said the load can wait doesn't mean you have to shonky your logbook to get the next load. If you need to shonky your logbook, that's a management problem. Can't use that as an excuse. Some days I get 3 hours down the road and have a break. Some days I do 5 hours. But it is what it is. If you have to rest, then rest. That's from Jimmy.
Yes. Now, I had a discussion. We had at that stage, the RTA came to Dubbo, and there was a pretty high-level people from the RTA. There were trucking industry people here. It was about changes to the law. And this RTA bloke came to me and he said, so what happens if, you get down the road and you haven't got enough hours? And he said, drop a trip. Now, his example, and again, the things that affect our ability to manage our fatigue and do the job safely and by the book are all out of my control, Luke. I go to a place to load, I turn up on time, the forky kicked his toe, or the machine broke down, or this bloke's paid me more to get loaded first, you sit there for 2 hours. So you sit there for 2 hours, and after 2 hours you go over and you say, what's going on, mate? Oh, yeah, look, we won't be long, but, look, we're nearly there, mate. Yep. So they sit there for another half hour. What's going on now? Oh, yeah, look, if they'd have told you at the start you were going to be there for 3.5 hours, you could have gone to bed. You could have had some sleep. You could have set yourself up. But no, they lie and they bullshit. Now, I can't control that, and yet I still have to be somewhere the next day. Now, my boss expects that. The truck's got to make money. He's got to pay for all that fuel that we're being exorbitantly ripped off for at the moment. And the RTA bloke said, well, if you don't make it, just stop. And that's fine for him. But when you stop, Luke, you don't lose an hour's pay. You lose 2 days' pay. Because if I don't get to Brisbane on Wednesday morning to unload and reload during Wednesday because of what happened the day before, and I don't get there till Thursday morning, oh, you've missed your time slot, or we've given that load away, now you're going to sit there for another day. So I could lose half a week's pay simply because of 1 hour. And his answer was, just give up a trip. So, how many people can give up half a week's wages because they lost an hour because somebody else didn't give a shit about their time?
Yeah, lots to think about there, and we'd love your feedback. Luke Boner, radioguy@gmail.com, and leave us a voice message. Just follow the prompts because it's really important. Well, Rod, the big news this week is the world's fuel crisis because of the Strait of Hormuz. And today, Donald Trump is saying, well, the rest of the world has to come in and police this and escort ships through that strait, which is predominantly run by Iran, which is attacking ships. So we have a shortage. It was an extraordinary performance in Parliament by the Energy Minister, Chris Bowen, this week, who stood up in Parliament and said there was no shortage, that deliveries were on time, they're coming. It's panic buying that's causing the problem. Calm down, Australia. It's not like toilet paper during COVID. Relax. And then the next day, which I found extraordinary, he said there is a fuel crisis. We do have a shortage. And he announced that they are going to temporarily allow what's being called dirty fuel to be released for 60 days, 100 million litres. Now, I spoke to Peter Curry from the NRMA, who explained it beautifully. The dirty fuel isn't exactly dirty. It's the same fuel we've been using for years up until a couple of years ago. And what Australia did, it tightened its environmental pollution laws so that the sulphur was then also refined further so that the petrol we use today has less sulphur than it had 2 years ago. So it's an Australian requirement. And he's going to release this higher sulphur petrol to the public, he says, for 60 days in an effort to try and boost supplies. But it's funny, isn't it? In one day, nothing to see here. All the rumours are just rumour mongering from the right. The next day, there is a problem. Maybe panic buying is adding to it. I have no doubt it is. However, let's get to this. Yes. I was really, really eager to hear what they were doing about diesel. And let me explain why. And this is my opinion. Australia runs off diesel. Obviously, Rod, the trucks. Some people can work from home. It makes life really, really difficult for those people in regional Australia that need their vehicles. Really, really difficult. But some people can work from home. If you live in the cities, hopefully you've got public transport you can rely on. If it means less cars on the road because people are conserving petrol, it might encourage people to carpool, etc., etc. But let's talk about diesel. Trucks cannot get groceries to supermarkets working from home. You can't do it on Zoom. Let's take it even further. Our farmers, there are no electric ploughs or headers or sprayers or electric farm equipment. Farmers need diesel to produce our food. Let's look at our fishing industry. Those trawlers that go out and bring fish back to our shores, they don't run off electric power. They don't run off 95. They run on diesel. So, Rod, I'm really keen to hear from your point of view. Is the government looking after our supplies of diesel? Is there enough out there? You're about to launch yourself on a long trip to Perth and then get back home again. What's the government saying about the current fuel crisis and how is it addressing diesel?
Probably three things, Luke. Now, the issue of fuel capacity and storage has been raised probably over the last 5 years, and they say that we have 25 days. Now, 25 days is not enough. We don't do the manufacturing that we did. We're down to 2 plants in Australia that produce fuel. I think there's one in Brisbane still used to do it, and there was one in South Australia. I think that one's closed. I think there's one in WA now, where we had about 13 many years ago. So they've all closed down, and we understand in one reason why. They can send a crude over. It is cheaper for someone in Singapore to refine it because they're refining millions of litres daily, and we were doing 1 million less.
Well, we only have 2 refineries. We only have 2 refineries, yeah.
So we had more, look,
Yeah.
we had more, and they've closed down.
Yep.
Some of them are storing some of the fuel that we have out of that capacity. But, of course, then the government said, oh, we've got a solution to this. We're going to store fuel in America. Well, that's really handy if America was, laying in the ocean just off the board, the eastern seaboard. But it's not. So storing fuel in America is probably pretty much like having a hip pocket in a submarine. It's a good idea. It just doesn't work real well. So, one, we don't have enough storage because we don't produce enough.
And also, Rod, just to point out that refined petrol, 91, 95, 98, has a relatively short shelf life. So it's unrefined oil that we need to have, and then we need to refine it.
Yes. Yes, and we need to do that here because we can't rely on storing it overseas. Yes, most of our fuel comes from Singapore. But, mate, a lot of these fuel price rises of a fuel that was bought weeks and months ago.
Yep.
The ACCC say they're going to talk to them. So what are they going to do? Say, oh, Rod, we owe you $25 because that fuel was too dear last week. We're never going to get that money back. They've let that go too late. They should have jumped on that from the start. That's my view.
Oh, but also the government, the government last week announced that fuel companies that are found to be price gouging will be fined up to $100 million. Now, is that a big enough incentive to do the right thing?
And is it too late? Because we know the gouging has already happened. So what are they going to do? Turn around and drop their prices? Well, now they can claim it's, we've had to buy more because there is a shortage, etc. So the problem, as you say, Luke, is that it's a compounding problem, right? So now we've got Mount Victoria closed. So any truck coming out of Sydney, let's use Dubbo for an example, right? Any truck coming out of Sydney, he's now paying more for his fuel. He's also got to take a detour around Bells and spend another 4 hours in the traffic, so he's wasting more fuel to do that. So anything that comes into Dubbo is going to cost more. So then the people in Dubbo who have shops and buy things out of Sydney, they're going to charge more. So that price is going to go up. So it's a compounding problem.
Yep.
You mentioned the farmers. Look, I'm really concerned about idiots that have gone and bought petrol in jerry cans and taken it home. I hope they don't blow themselves or their car or their house up because they're doing something really stupid. But I'm also concerned that 2 weeks ago, Luke, we had enough fuel tankers in Australia to deliver fuel for everybody. Now, the number of fuel tankers hasn't dropped. What's happened is people have gone out and gone, shit, I better order more than I need right now because I won't have any next week. And farmers are partly responsible. They've got crop season coming up. They've got planting season coming up. As you said, the tractor won't run on air. So they thought, oh, geez, I better make sure I've got some diesel now so that I can go planting in 2 weeks. Now, they've gone hard. They've gone and said, well, I need an extra load or I need another load. You've got them storing it. And diesel is non-hazardous. It's not like taking diesel home. These people take it petrol home in jerry cans. That is dangerous. But, mate, the people that have gone out and said, well, I need all this fuel now and I need it more than anybody else, 2 weeks ago we had enough fuel tankers and enough fuel. If people hadn't gone stupid, we'd have still had enough fuel tankers and enough fuel. And, yes, the government said there's so many boats in the terminal, there's so many boats on the water, and most of our fuel comes from Singapore and other places. So, again, I wish that people had had a little bit more sense, and maybe it wouldn't have gone stupid, but somebody started charging fuel prices when they did not pay that amount for the fuel, And that then, of course, as soon as people look at it going up, shit, I better get some more. It'll go up again. I better buy some more. So that's made it even worse.
Yeah, but let's also remember a huge consumer of diesel is our mining industry. God help me.
Yes, and the railways, Luke.
And the railways.
The railways still use diesel.
Yes.
To power their electric motors.
Yes, exactly.
And the mining industry. Yep, everything on the mines runs on diesel.
Just for our listeners' information, just to get your head around this, Kelsey, we here in Australia consume approximately 92 million litres of diesel every 24 hours. Just get your head around that. 92 million. We've got, I think, in reserve 2.7 to 2, but between 2.7 and 3 billion litres. Rod, the IEA, the International Energy Association, of which Australia is a member, says that member countries should have 90 days of refined petrol and diesel in store at any one time. We've only ever had between 30 and 35 days. Explain that.
Well, we don't comply. We are an island country, and for the government to turn around and say their solution is to store it in America, we've already discussed how sensible that might be. So, yes, we do need the capacity. Now, you can't do that overnight. It's a bit like saying, well, we should have had a tunnel through Mount Victoria, mate. That's not going to happen overnight either. So these things have been there. They've been an issue that they've been able to fob off to the next government and the next government and the next government, and now all of a sudden people have gone, oh, shit. Now, I did hear one expert say, oh, well, we've got to get more electric cars. Now, if you live in Sydney and you go to and from the shops, that might be an answer. As you said, there are no electric farm implements, and there are look, outside of a handful, there are no trucks that can use electric power to run from Dubbo to Perth and back. There are no facilities, there are no vehicles, there is no capacity for it, and we need diesel at least for the next number of years, and for people to say, put it on the train. Now, mate, I saw a video yesterday. The Darwin stores had about 4 mangoes left on the shelf. That's all there was because of the flooding there. Mm-hmm. The rail line is down to Perth, and that's why I'm going to Perth and every other truck driver that hasn't been there for a while. Yeah. Because the water washed the rail away. Yeah. So the rail can't do it if there's no bloody stone underneath the track.
No, I know. And just while you're on price gouging, this was interesting. During the week, the independent fuel group, Inland Group, made a statement. Their operating officer is a bloke called Nathan Lang, L-A-I-N-G. And Mr. Lang, we'd love to talk to you on the podcast if you're willing. But he reckons, the current Bowser price right now reflects what he's paid for the fuel. No, Mr. Lang, we know that petrol stations had jumped their prices on petrol that they'd already paid for at the old price.
Yes. There is no doubt about that. They didn't buy it the day before. They bought it months in advance. And there are some companies, of course, that have, futures contracts for fuel, and they'll do really well, while others will pay more. So, again, that's business. That's how it works. It is whether you're clever, but simply hoarding fuel and buying it when you don't need it, that's exacerbated the problem. And the fuel companies have just jumped on it and said, oh, goody, goody.
Yeah. Well, we'd love your feedback.
The government's not missing out either. Like, obviously, there is GST on the fuel. So, they're getting a bit more out of it at the same time. Certainly, people have said they should cut the excise or cut the GST, whatever it might be. That doesn't solve the problem of having sufficient capacity of fuel for the needs of Australia.
And that's another topic, and I'm happy to go there. And I'd love our listeners to tell us what they think. But there's been a lot of talk about cutting the fuel excise, which is at 51 cents a litre. Just imagine that, Kelsey. Every dollar you put in your car, 50 cents, 51 cents goes to the government, which is supposed to go back to the roads.
Ooh.
And electric vehicles don't pay that. It's another topic for another day. I'm happy to have that discussion. Scott Morrison back in 2022, because of the cost of living, he did reduce the fuel excise significantly. I think he reduced it to 22 cents. Do you remember that, Rod? So it has been done before. There was a lot of pressure on Morrison to keep it at that, but they didn't because of the billions of dollars in earnings. And so you've not only got the fuel excise, you just said it, you've got GST as well. But,
Yes.
It's not the price that I'm talking about. It's the availability. And diesel is so, so important. Last thing, Rod, I had a conversation with my mechanic, Michael, down the road the other day because I saw on Facebook that his business was advertising for another worker. He's just got himself into a new workshop. It's bigger, it's flashier, it's shinier, and he's looking for another qualified mechanic, or he said, I'm happy to put on an apprentice and pay them really decent wages. He has had no response. He's advertised it everywhere. He said no one is interested in becoming an apprentice mechanic. And we had an interesting discussion about that. And it's not just mechanics. I mean, you ask any builder, any tradie, it's really hard to find an apprentice. Rod, so let's talk about the future of the trucking industry. This was interesting. Isuzu says that the industry is in the midst of a skill shortage, and it says it's decades in the making, and they're warning that it's now threatening productivity and fleet uptime and long-term industry sustainability. They're right. Isuzu Australia says the main issue is the after-sales workforce, particularly with heavy vehicle technicians, where demand continues to aggressively outspace supply across metropolitan and regional Australia. It is dire straits for the future of the trucking industry, and not just the trucking industry. I wonder if it's parents pushing their kids towards university. Is it kids not wanting to get their hands dirty? Is it because apprentice wages are really poor? They always have been. And back in our day, Rod, if you did an apprenticeship, you knew you got crap wages for a while, but, you sort of relied on mum and dad. You lived at home. Mum and dad supported you. You curbed your spending, and you could see that there was a light at the end of the tunnel after you'd finished your apprenticeship. Rod, once again, the future of the trucking industry and the lack of young people wanting to get into it.
And the three factors that you quoted, Luke, are in each way partly responsible. Yes, people have been pushed out of trades. No one wants their kids to do that anymore, and yet you can do really well as your own plumber, electrician, mechanic, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, but just let me jump in. As I said to Mike, the mechanic, I said an apprenticeship is the only way where you can actually get paid, even though it may not be wages you're happy with. If you want to do medicine at Sydney Uni and you want to be a GP 5-6 years, you come out of that not earning anywhere near what you think you'll earn, and you've got a HECS debt to pay back. If you want to be a specialist, you've got another maybe 8 or 9 years, and you come out of it with a HECS debt. If you do an apprenticeship, you come out of it with a skill that's sought after, where you will earn good money. Hey, folks, when was the last time you tried to get a plumber or a sparky? Or had to get your car fixed? Don't talk to me about that. So you actually do get paid to learn a really, really important skill.
You do. And if you compare that to truck drivers, Luke, we haven't had that apprenticeship. We haven't had that skill set that people recognise. Now, again, there's two sides to it. Now that we have autos and the trucks are smoother and they've got the technology in them, yes, they are easier to drive. But people still don't want to live in a truck 6 days a week and have the average motorist try and kill them and have all those restrictions and penalties and fines that we've talked about. So not only are we struggling there, it's the rest of the logistics industry. It's the fact that, Luke, you haven't got forklift drivers to be able to get a licence at 16 yet. Come on, you're lagging there, mate. I want you to get onto the government and get that sorted tomorrow. That way we might get some kids in. We might be able to keep them in the industry by having them in the forklift and loading the trucks. Then it's the mechanics. And the mechanics, because of the electronics in the engines, has been a little bit, I suppose, a cleaner job than it was. Now you break down in the middle of the nullarbor and I need a sensor. Yeah, that's it. They're not going to send somebody out. It's going to be a part that no one knows until they put a computer on what's wrong with the truck. So that's another step there. And yes, it's seen as a dirty job. But geez, mate, I know blokes that work as mechanics in the mining industry that are making enormous money because there's a $7 million dragnet or, excavator or something that the mine requires on, and it's got to go and it's got to work. So, there are those sorts of things where they've dragged people out of general industry. You talk to anybody that works in a mining town, they can't get an electrician or a mechanic because the mines have dragged them away because they offer them more money. So you can make good money. But if we don't have people going into those roles, then that's going to get worse and worse over time. And again, not everybody can go to uni. Now, as you say, years ago, if you didn't do well at school, and Lindsay Fox, just one example, certainly in our industry, didn't do well at school, wasn't that way related, left, and look where he is now. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. Now, had somebody made him go to university to do an academics degree or whatever it is, an arts degree, would that have helped him? Lynn Fox probably wouldn't exist now.
Yeah.
So we need people to use their hands. Not everybody can be a doctor, and as you say, it's a long-term recovery to get that money back. So how do you change that, Luke? How do you incentivise people? Yes, the apprenticeship scheme, get me a left-handed screwdriver that's got,
the initiation, yeah.
That's the one, and that was sad at times but fun at others. So we need people to do those jobs because no matter what happens in the future, and we're going to have more robots, Luke. Now, who's going to fix the robot? Somebody's got to be able to fix the robot because we spoke of the DC, the Wool DC in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Now, that operates on robotics. Now, when something fails in that electronic system, that whole system will shut down. Someone's got to fix that. So the jobs are there, the money's there. We need people to recognise we need those skills, and somebody has to do it. And we can't just get people from overseas because they don't know necessarily what our systems are. We know they don't understand our road rules, but that's a whole other argument we won't go into now. But, where do we go for the future, mate? It's a real worry.
Well, you know how I'm an ideas man? Okay. We get the CSIRO, who are very clever. I mean, we here in Australia, we are leaders in this sort of thing.
Hang on, Luke. Have you just heard? They're about to put off a heap of staff because they've got no money.
Yeah, I have.
CSIRO.
Yeah.
That's a terrible loss. Anyway, sorry to spoil that.
And it's had its funding nearly halved. It's unbelievable, isn't it? And we invented Wi-Fi. My idea is this. We go to the CSIRO. And we somehow try and get them a huge grant, and what we need to do is clone Fergo. we need more Fergos, and we get some of Fergo's DNA with his mum's permission, and we get the CSIRO, and we clone Fergo from Broken Hill.
There you go, mate. Problem solved.
See, I'm an ideas man.
Mate, they'd all be friendly, they'd be affable, they'd be prepared to get in and get their hands dirty and have a go. They'd be genuine Aussie kids. That's what we need.
Right, Hannifey, how long until you, after all your stops, how long is it going to take you to get to Perth?
I'm hoping to be there Wednesday or Thursday. It depends on the delivery on the way and what hours they're open and whether I can sort of do me drop on the way and then get straight in. So Wednesday, Thursday, which means probably won't get out of there till Friday, which means another weekend away from home.
Do you come back empty, or are you picking something up there to bring it?
No, I've got a load. I've got a load to come back already.
Yeah. You never want to do...
A long way to go without one.
Yeah, it's a long way to come back empty, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Just incidentally, are you taking a road train?
Yes.
How fully laden, at capacity, what can a road train in weight tow?
Look, let's say 80 tonne. I won't.
B-double-60, isn't it?
I've got something. B-double-68, yeah. In simple terms, I could add it all up for you and say depends on how many axles and whether you got a tri-dolly and whether you got HML. So there's all factors.
Yeah, just be a little. Just bring it back to Luke language for a second.
Yes, let's say 80 tonne.
80 tonne, Dubbo to Perth, fully at 80 tonne. How much diesel do you reckon you'll use?
Off the top of my head, let's say it's 1.5 kilometres to the litre. I'll probably do a little bit better than that. 1.5 kilometres, and I think it's 3,600 from Dubbo, although I can't remember last time I measured it. You just go and do it. I don't measure it before I go. But, yeah, so 3,600 at 1.5 kilometres to the litre. You've got a calculator, Luke. I've got mine in my hand and it's busy.
Kelsey, get your calculator out. Stop. She's playing Tetris.
No, I'm playing chess.
Oh, jeez.
Good to see that you're on the ball.
Yeah, no, she's doing it.
I didn't realise I was meant to be part of this.
She's doing her astrology. I've told you before, Kelsey.
yeah.
Stop looking at your astrology. You're off with the fairies. I don't think I can work with you anymore.
Oh, boo-boo.
But Rod, do me a favour. If you can, I would love to know both how much fiscally it costs in diesel at 80 tonne to get to Perth and back. I want to know how much. This is just one truck, folks, one road train.
No, it costs
Give
so
us an
much.
idea of how much diesel, both in litres and money, that's costing. I'd be really interested to know.
All right, I'll keep a record for you, but to be fair, I am going light. Now, I have a cubic load. I have a load that isn't right up on maximum weight, but it fills the trailer, and it's a piece of machinery, and I've got steel, I've got all sorts of weird stuff on there. So I won't be right up on my 80 tonne, and I'll probably do a bit better on the fuel because of that, but I will keep a record, how much over and back loop, and I'll let you know.
I really want to know. I think that's fascinating. Rod, safe trucking, mate, and I hope when you do get close to empty, the truck stop that you refill at has some black liquid gold under the ground for you.
Yes, me too, mate. They'll be giving it up instead of Marta Prize home soon. It'll be 100 litres of fuel will be the major prize.
Oil, that is. Black gold, Texas tea. Beverly Hillbillies, eh? Who would have thought?
Certainly was, yeah.
Certainly was. Rod, you take care, mate. Talk to you when you get back.
Safe travelling to war, mate.